It's week 16 of this NFL season, and this is Cowboys Insider inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star in Frisco, Texas, home of the Dallas Cowboys. Bill Jones along with Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Daryl Johnston as we look back at last week's big win over Oakland, 20-17, and look ahead to Sunday afternoon at AT&T Stadium, the Seattle Seahawks in town. And yes, Zeke is back in the house here at the Star. And Daryl, the Cowboys are still in the playoff hunt.
They are. And one of the big things you have to remember from Sunday night, no excuses, no apologies, no style points in the NFL. A win is a win. Take it, move on. You've got to close out the rest of your season and then keep your fingers crossed.
3-3 with the big dog rolling, man. I mean, Zeke is back. Let's do it. I mean, I'm like Moose. Did we play a game this past week? Oh, yeah, we won.
Yeah, I think we're in all Zeke all the time mode. I think you're going to have to give Zeke the ball 25, 30 times, make sure his legs are back, and run to win for the next 2 weeks.
This might be the team to do that against when you look at what Todd Gurley did against the Seahawks last week. We'll get into the Seahawks in just a moment, but first let's get into that Raiders game. And this is not only a game of inches, apparently it's a game of index cards too. That was rather unique.
It really was, and it's great theater, but we've got to come up with some better ways to do this. And number one, the spot. This overhead camera that we've had a couple of times here in the Dallas games that's been helpful. To me, the spot was bad from the start. It should have been at the top of that white line, at that yard line, and then we get away from the fact that we had to put a card in there.
You know, we got to start giving the game back to the players, letting them make plays, letting them do things. Referees got to get out of the way. And I know it's about the Cowboys, but we got to do a better job with our officials.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cheap theatrics on a national television game. Make the call. Your best officiating tool are your eyes, not a piece of paper. Make the call.
And, of course, the game comes down to the final play. Derek Carr reaching for the end zone, fumbles through the end zone, touchback, ball goes to the Cowboys. On the same day, Ben Roethlisberger forces a ball into the end zone in a game against the Patriots. Here, Derek Carr, he's got the first down. He's got a timeout in his hip pocket. He's got Marshawn Lynch in his backfield. And with 31 seconds left in the game, there goes the game for the Raiders.
And you can take all those scenarios and play them in your head, but once that play is initiated, all you're thinking about is winning the game. And I don't know if you can even, from a competitive nature, God, I can't put it on my inside left hand as a right-handed guy and try and maintain possession. And I give all the credit to Jeff Heath. It's a great hustle play. It's a great job by him. I respect Derek Carr for trying to win that game right there. But that's a great play by Jeff.
It's the competitive nature of an athlete comes out there, right?
But I heard all these different people after the fact saying what they would have done, how they thought about it. He was just trying to make a play, and Jeff Heath just made a better play. This is one time where defense beat offense, and great play, Jeff Heath.
And I think that's a terrible rule. I would hope they fix that. If he had fumbled the ball on the one, the Raiders had the possession, but because the ball rolled out of the end zone at touchback, I think it's a terrible rule. I think they've got to get, when you lose the ball like that, the play ends where it left his hand.
And what is that? That's like the fourth one this year.
Yeah.
A couple of them, game-changing like right at the end.
It's like every week there's a play like this.
And what a play by Chris Jones, the fake punt from his own 24-yard line on a 4th and 11 play, a 24-yard gain, and kind of jump-started the Cowboys. Cowboys wound up scoring a touchdown on that drive.
Well, it's the great thing about a fake punt at that position on the field. The punt coverage or the punt block team is not expecting it. And Jimmy always said you got to have the courage to call it, and then the ability to execute it. And a lot of that goes to the faith of the Dallas defense that if this doesn't work, we feel good with you guys coming out on the field and holding them to a field goal attempt. So great confidence in your complimentary football.
You know, the great thing about Jason Garrett is he never does anything out of order. This was out of order, and that's why it was executed well.
Yeah, the sad thing is I think Chris Jones has had a Pro Bowl caliber year. I don't know any punter who's been more valuable to his team than Chris Jones this year, but it's a stat position. He's in the middle of the pack as far as average and net average, and he won't get it. Johnny Hekker will get it. But I think Chris Jones has had as good a year as any punter in the NFL this season.
And Johnny Hekker was named the Pro Bowl punter for the NFC. Dak Prescott did not have the statistical numbers. He did have the rushing touchdown, though. Did have the 2 picks in the game, but he engineers a victory.
And that's the most important part. It's all about wins. Again, we talked about it at the top. There are no style points. Sometimes you have to win ugly, and Dallas has had to do that without Ezekiel in the lineup a couple of times, and things should get a little bit cleaner here down the stretch.
I don't know if it was ugly, but it was show of a mystery. I mean, I still pinch myself. I've never been a part as an analyst or as a player. This was a very weird game, but the Cowboys came out on top.
And I think it should open up this year with Zeke back this week. With Zeke back, the defensive backs are going to have to start honoring the run a little bit more. That should ease up the defensive coverage plans on Beasley, Witten, and Des Bryant. So I think Dak should have a better game this week just for the fact that Zeke is there.
All right, we're just getting started here on Cowboys Insider. Up next, what happened to the Seahawks last week and how much of a threat do they pose this week against the Cowboys?
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, the official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys, AT&T, mobilizing your world, and by Baylor Scott & White. We're changing health care for life. This segment is brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage.
Second down and goal at the 5. Prescott in the gun, back and looking, standing with forever, looking, running right, running left at the 5, goal line, walk the dog, touchdown, Prescott.
The threat of the run, very big for Dak Prescott as he finds the end zone against the Raiders on Sunday night. Now here comes Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks. Bill Jones, Nate Newton, Rick Goslin, and Daryl Johnston inside the Academy Sports and Outdoor Studios here at the Star. What in the world happened to the Seahawks last week? They lose to the Rams 42-7. Daryl had the Seahawks, didn't you, a couple of weeks ago in Jacksonville. And, well, they're so dependent on Russell Wilson, aren't they?
They really are. They really are. I mean, everything starts right there. And if you can contain him and corral Russell Wilson, you got a great chance of winning the football game. And he almost pulled that one out in Jacksonville. It was amazing what he does in the fourth quarter. He's 18-5 in the month of December, 21-5 if you take December and January regular season games. There's always an opportunity for him to rescue this game at the end. But the big thing for Dallas with Ezekiel coming back, Leonard Fournette went for 101 in Jacksonville, controlled the line of scrimmage. Last week, Todd Gurley tore him apart. Also some issues with the punt return game. You know, they're struggling to cover punts. So there's some areas where Seattle's just not playing typical Seattle football.
When you're over 80% of your offense and 90%, 97% of your TDs, I mean, once it's over for Russell, once you contain him, it's over. They win with defense and running the ball. They haven't had a runner since beast mode. They're in trouble. They're in trouble.
They are a shell of the Super Bowl contender they thought they were going to be. They lost their left tackle in training camp. They lost their best pass rusher, Cliff Averill, Pro Bowler. In October, they've lost their best corner, Richard Sherman. They've lost their best safety, Cam Chancellor. They're on their 5th running back. This is a shell of the team we thought they were in September.
It's been interesting what they've tried to do at the running back position since beast mode was there. I mean, they took a flyer on Eddie Lacy this year. That didn't work out. Now they're on Mike Davis, as you said, their 5th running back. But you got to have a run game to support Russell Wilson, don't you? And
that's why they were so effective, you know, when Marshawn was there. That was the offset. That was the balance. You always had to worry about that inside, so that impacted what you were going to do from a front standpoint. And that allowed Russell Wilson to be able to have these ad-lib style plays. But, yeah, they're desperately seeking that running element, and I just don't know if they're going to find it by the end of the year.
And their offensive line has been makeshift. They did acquire Dwayne Brown during the season. As far as receiving threats, I don't know where Jimmy Graham's gone the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, they've got Doug Baldwin and others out there.
You got to be able to pass block. And even though they went out and got Brown, which I think he missed most of training camp and most of the season, so he's not right there yet. So when you're missing your offensive line, it all starts there. Russell can run around all he wants and do what he has to do, but it's just a mad scramble.
It's tough to pass block when the quarterback doesn't want to throw from the pocket.
Yes.
You know, Russell Wilson's like that. He's better when he's on the move. And if you're blocking for a pocket passer, you got a pretty good feel of where he is. But when he starts moving around, you lose containment on the block, and then you got some problems. But, yeah, the problem is if this was a healthy defense, this scheme works, because then you're asking Russell, make a play in the fourth quarter to get us win. But with no defense, they're getting about 42 points. There are no plays left in the fourth quarter for Russell.
Yeah, let's dive into that defense a little bit more here. Bobby Wagner bothered by a hamstring. Questioned even by his teammate Earl Thomas whether he should have been even out there last week. And that's been the calling card for Seattle during their heyday here in the last half decade.
If Bobby Wagner is not healthy, and as Rick said, Cam Chancellor was out of the lineup already. Cam Chancellor, to me, is the difference maker in that defense. And Bradley McDougal has done a nice job. He's the first substitute that they've had that's been kind of able to steady that ship with Cam out of the lineup. But to me, he was like Eric Williams on our offense. Eric Williams brought that nastiness. Cam Chancellor brought that physicality to that defense, and nobody else has picked it up.
You know, you got to play tough. And they've lost their toughness. The bullies are getting bullied now, and that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, that's what the Jaguars said. The bullies don't like getting pushed around. That's what happened then. And again, in St. Louis, that was shocking. I mean, the Los Angeles, that was shocking. Put up 42 against Seattle, in Seattle. I don't know that I've ever seen that.
All right, so what can the Cowboys do against the Seahawks, and how much of a difference will Zeke make? We dive into that when Cowboys Insider continues in a moment.
This segment was brought to you by the Dallas Morning News. Nobody does sports like Sports Day. Your home for complete Dallas Cowboys coverage. This segment is brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
First and goal at the 1, no wide receivers, straight I formation. They're going to run Rod Smith at a left guard, touchdown, Cowboys. The pile move.
Rod Smith, Alfred Morris, they do a good job in Zeke's absence. Cowboys go 3-3 the last 6 weeks, but now Zeke is back in the house. And welcome back to Cowboys Insider here in the Academy Sports and Outdoors studios. Daryl Johnston, what is the big thing that Ezekiel Elliott brings back to the team?
Well, that guy that can change what a defense wants to do in the box. And I think the point that Rick has made through this entire time that Zeke has been out of the lineup, the lack of the big play for Dallas, it hasn't been there. He's the one guy that can take it to the house from any point on the field, and that really stresses the defensive coordinator.
Man, just heart, excitement.
There's
the
a
love for the
swagger
game. Yeah, man. It's a love for the game when the big dog is barking, man, and everybody gets involved. You know, everybody gets involved. Hey, man, Sean Lee, you got your running mate back.
Yeah, I think Bill hit it on the head. I think it's swagger.
Yeah.
When he shows up, all of a sudden defense is a little bit tentative about executing his game plan because this guy can go 80 with his handoff. So now you got that swagger back on the offensive line, at the quarterback, the running back, the receivers even feel it.
Taking nothing away from Alfred Morris and Rod Smith. They did a good job over the last 6 weeks, didn't they?
They did a great job. And here's a great example. You know, we're getting ready for a game this weekend, and we went back, we watched San Francisco. And C.J. Beathard did a great job playing quarterback for the Niners. But Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback, everybody's playing a little bit better. When Ezekiel comes into that lineup, everybody plays a little bit better.
Zeke, welcome back, homie. Loving it.
And the big thing here is, and it looked there for a while, okay, you got 3 games there where they're not even reaching double digits in points, and you're wondering, okay, is this team even going to be in the playoff chase once Zeke gets back? Well, they rebounded. They got 3-3 over this 6-game stretch, and yeah, it's still a long shot, but they have a shot.
Yeah, the biggest thing is once you lose control of your own destiny, and that Atlanta game was a killer. The Atlanta game really killed them. And then you go back and I'm still trying to figure out the Denver game. I still don't know what happened in that Denver.
So you see
it's just unbelievable. So I mean, I know it's focused Seahawks, but yeah, you never want to lose control of your own destiny.
All right, this offensive line, 3 Pro Bowlers once again: Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, and Zach Martin. You're all in favor of that, right, Nate?
Hey, we gonna win regardless. Our O-line, that is.
I think when they started the turnaround, they lost those first 3. They came back. That Washington game, I think they recommitted themselves to running the football. And I think that's been the key, and they cannot lose that identity these next 2 weeks, this next season, this next decade. As long as Elliott's here, that's your identity. Run the ball.
And by the way, I mentioned the 3 offensive Pro Bowlers. DeMarcus Lawrence, first time in his career, he is a Pro Bowler and a Pro Bowl starter at that. So congratulations to DeMarcus.
He launched.
All right, when we come back in just a moment, we go around the league. And what needs to happen for the Cowboys to get closer to the playoffs this weekend?
This segment was brought to you by DraftKings. Play for free today at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site.
It's time to go around the league here on Cowboys Insider here in the Academy Sports and Outdoors studio. So what needs to happen for the Cowboys to go into the game against Philadelphia next week with a win and you're in the playoff scenario? Well, here's what in a nutshell, needs to happen. The Saints need to beat the Falcons. Somehow Tampa Bay needs to go into Carolina and win, and you need Cincinnati to beat Detroit. Simple enough. You like that?
Hard, especially that last
That is hard.
Especially that last one.
Let's start with Falcons-Saints, okay? How do you make out with that one?
Well, you know, New Orleans was one of my teams a couple of weeks ago before that Ram game that I thought might have got into the NFC playoffs and made some noise and maybe actually become the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. But they've been down a little bit the last couple of weeks with as important a game as it is for Atlanta and how poorly they played Monday night. I would expect them to bounce back and play well. So I think Atlanta's going to get New Orleans in New Orleans.
All these teams can run the ball. All these teams can play defense. I mean, you just have to watch. All the Cowboys got to do is control what they can. That's by winning this game this weekend and let it fall where it happens.
If Matt Ryan shows up, I like the Falcons, but Matt Ryan hasn't been there all season. He hasn't had more than 2 touchdown passes in any game. He's had 9 games where he's had 1 touchdown pass or less. This is a guy who was a league MVP last year. If the Matt Ryan of 2016 shows up these next 2 weeks, I really like Atlanta, but we haven't seen him all year.
Tampa Bay almost did the Cowboys a great favor on Monday night. They missed a long field goal that would have forced overtime against Atlanta. Can they go into Carolina and win? What do you think, Moose?
Well, they get a little bit of a break because Thomas Davis is going to be out of the lineup with the suspension. That will help. You have to see the health at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How many of those defensive players, Gerald McCoy, Levante David, how many are back this week? So that's going to be a tough task. Tampa
Bay is one of them teams that's playing. How can we win? How can we lose this game? It gets down to the 2 minutes left. Hey, man, who's going to step up today and lose this game? Carolina, on the other hand, they want to play it close because they got the kicker, they got the run game, and more importantly, they got Kinkley. They can't win.
Yeah, Carolina's got a great defense. Yeah. I think Tampa's going to struggle to move the ball and score points, even without Thomas Davis. I think Carolina ought to win this game by 2 scores.
And that's the tough thing here when you've got teams matched up against other teams that are just playing out the string. In Cincinnati, it looks like Marvin Lewis is gone, and that's a team in disarray, to say the least. And the Cowboys depending on Cincinnati to beat Detroit, I don't know.
Well, the big thing is Cincinnati's never taken that next step. I mean, how many times are you going to let a team get to the playoffs and lose in the playoffs and never make any, major changes to change what's going on? So this is just one of those seasons that was inevitable for Cincinnati to have.
They've been in disarray since he first got there. In the middle of his tenure, they was in disarray, and now he's leaving. They're still in disarray. That's the Cincinnati Bengals.
If you're the Bengals, I think at some point you got to look at A.J. McCarron. You haven't done it with Andy Dalton. I think Marvin Lewis is 0-7 in the playoffs. Dalton has won the playoffs, and McCarron got in the field last week. At some point these last 2 weeks, they're going to have to take a look at McCarron. That decreases the Bengals' chance of winning.
And one of the intriguing matchups, you're looking at the Titans here, and they need a win against the Rams at home. It's a tough assignment.
Very tough, very tough. This is a young Rams team with a ton of confidence. You saw what they did out in Seattle last week. This is the game that we're doing, so you're kind of hearing some of the thoughts through this. And they are as complete a team. We focus on what McVay has done with Goff and these receivers. That defense, Aaron Donald, oh my goodness.
Man, put the women and children in the shelters, man. There's a bombing coming, you hear me?
I'd say everywhere Wade Phillips goes, there's a 50-sack season is soon to follow, and that's what he's done. He's given these guys the hope that they can get to the quarterback and the scheme to do it, and they are violent.
So you're saying Wade Phillips got swag?
Wade's got swag.
His first year as defensive coordinator at a team, that team has gone to a playoffs. That streak was supposed to end this year with the 4-12 Rams.
Aaron Donald fits in that way. Aaron Donald fits in every defense. All right, we have the keys to a Cowboys victory coming up next.
Cowboys with this clip.
Cowboys Insider, presented by Baylor Scott & White, was brought to you by AT&T, mobilizing your world. Rico's, make every game a home game with Rico's. Baylor Scott & White, it's easy to find the right doctor right now at BaylorScottandWhite.com. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' films and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.
Final couple of minutes here of Cowboys Insider. It is a 3:25 kickoff on Sunday, Christmas Eve. The Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. So what are the keys to a Cowboys victory and staying in that playoff chase? What do you think, Daryl?
The biggest thing is how do they defend the broken play when Russell Wilson breaks contain and a new play starts? It's become a part of their offense. So the secondary for the Dallas Cowboys at that time has to, if you're in man coverage, if you're in zone coverage, your eyes, where are your eyes? They need to be on Paul Richardson, Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett. If you look anywhere else, these guys are unbelievable at ad-libbing this pass play.
Switzer can come up big. I think special teams will be a big part of this right here. And then play smart. No bad penalties, and you should be all right.
There's only one guy that can beat you this week, and that's Russell Wilson. So I tell the defensive lineman, pick out your track shoes. You got to run him down. This pass rush has not had a sack in 4 of the last 5 games. They've got to get Russell Wilson. He has got a lot of sacks this year on this offensive line. I think the key is going to get Russell Wilson on the ground.
I didn't hear a run the ball.
No, I went defense because I thought you were going to go run the ball. I left that one right there for you.
It's just a given. You got Zeke back, so you're going to run the ball, right?
I hate to be repetitious for 16 weeks.
All right, that does it here for Cowboys Insider. All of you have a very Merry Christmas, and we will see you again next week here on Cowboys Insider from inside the Star here in Frisco, Texas.
Merry